Hey there. We spend our entire day clicking, tapping, and typing away on our devices, but have you ever stopped to really think about what's running the show? What's that invisible force making it all work? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and meet the unseen manager inside every single computer.
And spoiler alert, it's not you. Nope. There's this incredibly powerful manager working behind the scenes, and its whole job is to make sure everything you do just works. I mean, without this manager, your digital life would be absolute total chaos.
To get a picture of what that chaos looks like, just imagine a super busy restaurant kitchen, but with no manager. You've got chefs fighting over stoves, ingredients are nowhere to be found, orders are all mixed up, it's a disaster. Nothing gets done. Well, that crazy, chaotic kitchen, that's exactly what a computer is like without an operating system.
So, here's what we've got on the menu for today. We're going to meet this ultimate computer manager. Then, we'll break down its four main jobs. We'll look at the chain of command, how it all communicates. We'll see that there are different managers for different jobs. And finally, we'll meet the big three you probably use every single day.
All right, first things first. Let's get a proper introduction to the hero of our story, the one that brings some much-needed order to all that digital chaos.
So this manager has a name. It's called an operating system, or just OS for short. You can think of it as the ultimate middleman. It's the essential piece of software that acts as a bridge, right? It connects you and all your applications with the actual physical hardware of the computer. To put it simply, it's in charge of everything.
Okay, but what does being in charge really mean? What does this manager do all day? Well, it has four main jobs, and to really get a handle on them, we're heading right back into our restaurant kitchen analogy. Let's see how a great manager runs the whole show. Job number one is something called process management. See, every single app you open, every tab you have in your browser, each one is what we call a process. The OS has to be this master juggler, deciding which process gets to use the computer's brain, the CPU, and for exactly how long. It's a lot like the restaurant manager, making sure that video you're streaming, that document you're typing in, and the music you've got playing in the background all get their fair turn on the stove, you know? All without burning the whole meal. Okay, next on the list, memory management. Your computer has a finite amount of short-term working memory. We call it RAM. The OS is in charge of handing out chunks of this memory to all the different programs that need it. And, just as important, it's responsible for taking that memory back when a program is done with it.
Back in our kitchen, you can think of RAM as that precious, limited counter space. The OS is the manager who allocates that space, making sure every chef has enough room to work their magic without getting in each other's way and making a huge mess. It's all about efficiency.
Job number three is file system management. This is basically the OS acting as your digital librarian. It knows exactly where every single file, every photo, every document is stored. But it's also the security guard, controlling who gets permission to open what.
Exactly. This is the manager who runs the pantry. They know precisely where every ingredient is, right down to the last grain of salt, and they know which chefs are allowed to use the expensive stuff. The OS does the exact same thing for all your data.
And last but not least, we have device management. I mean, think about it. Your computer is connected to all sorts of hardware, right? Your monitor, your keyboard, a printer. The OS is the one that speaks their language. It uses these little translators called device drivers to communicate with all of them and tell them what to do. And this really brings the whole analogy together. The manager isn't just directing the chefs. They're making sure the ovens, the dishwashers, the receipt printers, all the equipment is working perfectly and knows exactly what to do the second an order comes in. Okay, so now we know what the manager does, but how does it all happen? How does your simple mouse click actually make its way down to the physical hardware? Let's trace that communication chain all the way from your click right down to the core. So it all starts with you, the user. You give a command, like clicking an icon. That command first goes to something called the shell. Think of the shell as the restaurant's maitre d'. It takes your request and translates it. It turns it into a formal request, called a system call, and sends it to the heart of the operation, the kernel. The kernel is the head chef. It's the absolute core of the OS. It gets that order and then directly tells the hardware what to do. And finally, the hardware performs the action. Pretty cool, right? Now, here's a key thing to remember. Not all managers are created equal, right? You wouldn't hire a manager from a fast food joint to run a 5-star restaurant.
And in the same way, not all operating systems are the same. They've evolved over time and become specialized for very different kinds of jobs.
And wow, what a journey it's been. If you go way back to the 40s and 50s, there was no OS at all. It was all manual. Then we got batch processing systems. The real game changer was in the 60s and 70s with multi-programming, which eventually led to personal computers and the graphical user interfaces, the GUIs, that we all know and love. And today, we've got these hyper-specialized OSs for our phones, for the cloud, and for real-time systems where every millisecond counts.
Let's put this into perspective with our different kitchens idea. You have something like a batch OS. Think of this as the manager of a giant cafeteria. Its job is to process huge volumes of similar jobs one after another, like running a company's payroll. Super efficient for that one task. But then you have a real-time OS. This is more like a master sushi chef at a high-end counter. Precision and timing are everything. It has to respond instantly. That's why you find these in robotics or, air traffic control systems where a delay could be catastrophic.
Okay, it's time to bring this all back to what you know. Let's meet the famous three, the OS managers that you almost certainly use every single day.
So, let's compare their management styles. First, you've got UNIX. This is kind of the granddaddy of them all, developed way back in the 70s. It's built for rock-solid stability, which is why it's a favorite for big company servers. Then you have Linux. This is the open-source kit of UNIX, and its superpower is customization. If you're a developer or just someone who loves to tinker, you go with Linux for total control. And of course, there's Windows. This is the manager most of us are familiar with. Why? Because its compatibility with software and games is just massive, making it the go-to for most PCs out there.
So think about this. Every click you make, every tap on your screen, every single keystroke, it's all being orchestrated by this brilliant, unseen manager working silently in the background. The next time you open an app or save a file, just take a second to appreciate the incredible complexity that's happening behind the scenes. It's amazing, really.
So, the next time someone asks you what's really in charge of your computer, you'll know the answer. And it doesn't matter if it's Windows, macOS, Android, or iOS running your device. They all have this silent partner at their core. So I'll leave you with this question. What kind of manager is running your world right now?